Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
In honor of Black History Month, we like to pay tribute and showcase the great defining Black characters and figures the world has come to love.
This year, we're honoring 3 of the real-life historical heroes and icons brought to life on film by the late, great Chadwick Boseman.
So without further delay, let's explore the history of Marshall on Black History Heroes 2023. Okay, Dragon, you know what we went the whole podcast last time when we talked about 42 without bringing up?
Yeah.
The whole David Hyde Pierce scheme thing.
Yeah.
So I Dragon, I think we're overdue. I think we need to address that.
Yeah.
So why don't you just tell the folks the analogy?
Well, folks, again, we figure at this point, watching Black History Heroes, especially for this year, you'd probably pick up on this by now. But in case you haven't, Tiki and I, we are. While we do operate in kind of an audio setting mostly these days, in case you're curious, we're we're probably the whitest white men you'll ever see in your life. You're gonna need sunglasses if you see us. And the reason being, we are the best analogy I have for how white we are. Like, how white are they?
Oh God,
we're like David Hyde Pierce skiing. So imagine David Hyde Pierce in a white ski outfit on the slopes in a blizzard. Add like a little. If he's holding a little sign, if he's holding 2 little signs in his hands, with the basically at the end, a little pointy skis, little signs at the end that says Tiki, Blue Dragon 5. We're David Hyde Pierce skiing, as in, folks. We do not we have not lived through the Black experience remotely at all. We got nada there. We got no cachet there. So you know, again, we're speaking as purely observers there, whitest white men on the internet. David Hyde Pierce enjoying a jaunty David Nivens ski.
All right, well said, Dragon. Well said.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Marshall. I mean, Dragon. I like this movie. And I think the best quality of it, and I have it in the video description, is I do really think that performance-wise, Chadwick Boseman is really channeling that Sidney Poitier, Mr. Tibbs energy in this movie, and I really appreciate that. I do think out of the 3 that we're looking at, I think this is pretty definitively, like, not the weakest. I don't want to call it the weakest, but it's definitely the one that I probably am never going to rewatch again. I mean, it's a history lesson. It's a good history lesson, but there's just not a lot of theatricality to it. It's a very cut and dry courtroom drama with some really good performances, some good standouts. You know, I think Josh Gad is one of the more standout supporting characters between the 3 movies that we've covered. But I think this is good, but not great. I think obviously it's an important story and it's handled well, and it does have some in the heat of the night kind of noir energy to it. But I don't know. It's just not like Dragon, just to do a little bit of inside baseball. Like, you and I literally just spent the past half hour or so trying to come up with a good thumbnail for this.
Well, don't tell. Oh, now you told me that.
No, I'm just saying, just because this movie is just very. It is not a theatrical movie, man. There's not a lot of interesting shots in this movie. It is like, I'm gonna say this. It's not nearly as just cut and dry boring as The Post is, but it has the same kind of sort of like clinical feeling as The Post, as far as like, this is a movie that's made more for the story than it is for the entertainment value. It's still a good movie, but I was really, I mean, as you know, with Get On Up in particular, I was pretty blown away by. We'll get there, but I like it. I don't necessarily think it's breaking any sort of new ground for biopics by any means.
Yeah, so I thought it was really an excellent legal drama about Thurgood Marshall, in the making, essentially, in kind of like the kind of his star-making uphill battle, one could say. I don't know. I like this. I will admit, though, I think I don't think this is necessarily like like subpar compared to the other two, but I do think the other two have kind of more style and kind of like kind of more of a kind of
It's
visual.
really not the fault of this movie
Yeah.
at all. Like, I feel bad because I basically watched this immediately after Get On Up.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that movie is going to be way more in your face in the style and the pacing and everything.
And I did warn you that would happen. I did.
Yeah.
I told you there was going to be a very stylistic kind of like these are three very different movies. And that's what's really fascinating about these three Chad Boseman performances. They're all very different. You know, you have, Jackie Robinson. That's an average Joe playing he just wants to play ball. You have James Brown, bigger than life, essentially Black Elvis, essentially. Thurgood Marshall is a man with a cause, again, kind of in the Sidney Poitier kind of vein. He's a man with a cause and indomitable will. And in a sense, he's kind of a combination of both the previous roles. In a sense, he's kind of like, imagine kind of taking the stoicism.
I don't think there's a lot of James Brown in this role.
Well, let me get, it's kind of like the stoicism of Jackie Robinson, but also kind of the self-assured confidence of James Brown.
All right, fair enough.
James Brown's whole thing is like, he basically went by his instincts.
Ain't nobody get me down on James Brown.
Exactly. So seriously, it's the fact that James Brown, he did not let anyone tell him no. That's what I'm saying. So this is like Thurgood Marshall's absolutely calling the shots here, and he's not bending for anyone. So there's a little bit of James Brown there, but again, it's mostly hence the combination, not just one or the other. And of course, you can always look at Thurgood Marshall as his own thing. So three different roles. So. But yeah, so I just like that each Chadwick Boseman role is different here. Got a great cast again. Josh Gad, I think he really shines. Gets to show some range outside of what he usually does.
No, totally.
I like the forced friendship that kind of gets forged between these two guys. You know how they're kind of stuck together and they kind of become buddies. So definitely some Poitier in there with kind of like what kind of vibe this movie's going for. I think I agree with you. It doesn't reinvent the legal courtroom drama. However, I do think it's like a prime example of like how you tell this kind of story. If you're going to be like, what's an example of the legal courtroom drama? What's a good example of the legal courtroom drama? Well, folks, I'm so glad you asked. Here you go. You can kind of show. I mean, you're like, this is basically how it looks. This is how you go for it. And again, this is the most cinematic in terms of how you showcase the thing that's been done time and time and time again. Unless you're the verdict, there's only so much you can do. Mm-hmm. It is an eye-opening. The big takeaway from this movie, I think, especially in the context of Black History Month, is it is eye-opening to how one-sided the legal system was, and more unsubtly than I'm still saying there's definitely a one-sided quality still, but back then especially they were very unsubtle and to your face about it, compared to now. And this is the kind
thing about that is that you're right. That is a card that this movie has in its pocket, but I think the trial of the Chicago 7 was much more compelling in that regard.
Yeah, but to be fair, Chicago 7, that was like one character had a standout representation of that problem. So that was
sure
part of the whole. But obviously it's the standout moment of that movie, no question. But still, this movie all about kind of that sort of thing,
Right.
Anyway, so this is of course, this is the stuff that lit the fire for Thurgood Marshall to kind of really change the justice system the way he did when he was on the Supreme Court. So yeah.
Okay, so background, Dragon. What do you got?
All right. So this was out of the three movies we talked about, this is the only movie with a black director, believe it or not. We have Reginald Hudlin who directed.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, but whatever.
Yeah, so Reginald Hudlin, he did a bunch of movies you might have heard of. Well, a few of which, one of which I know you absolutely know about. He did House Party. He did a couple documentaries that are really good. Did The Black Godfather and the Sidney Poitier documentary came out last year that was on I think Apple TV Plus, and he wrote Bebe's Kids.
Oh God!
Reginald Hudlin gets around. I think he also wrote.
Oh no!
I think ironically too, he wrote some Black Panther comics. If I remember correctly, so again, a little connected tissue. We got a little. They got a couple.
You know what? I mean, honestly, Dragon, joke all you want, but Bebe's Kids legitimately does like represent Black culture pretty well.
Apparently, it's a terrible game though.
Yeah,
but no, seriously, sure. I mean, Baby's Kids was big just to do a movie like that before. It was like way before we get to the era of like having a show like The Proud Family, for example.
Right.
Able to do that sort of thing. So it was, could be a little better, but still. Anyway, so the writers on this, the writing on this is kind of interesting. So the writers on this were a father-son duo. It was Michael and Jacob Koskoff. I think is how you say it, Koskoff. And they so Michael Koskoff, the father, the elder of the Koskovs, he was actually he went from writing to law for a bit. He was a lawyer in Connecticut, so he most likely heard about the famous the Sam Friedman story, the Connecticut lawyer, and all the stuff that he did, what went down in Connecticut. So that's probably what kind of drew him to do the story. Like, this guy does not really has not written anything else. His son's written a couple movies, but it's the fact that it's probably kind of what inspired and drove the story. It's kind of probably a personal, like he learned it firsthand sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
So in real life, of course, this is a big kind of really cool bit of background here. In real life, as I think a lot of us learned, Chadwick Boseman very proudly attended Howard University, like Thurgood Marshall did. So there's kind of a bit of a kingship there. Definitely an interest in the role on that level, where he, thanks to Denzel Washington, I believe Felicia Rashad to some degree, they helped Chadwick Boseman be able to get into Howard University. They did kind of like essentially Denzel Washington, I believe, like not a scholarship per se, but like he helped, he kind of paid for his tuition. I think Felicia Rashad helped him get a scholarship, I believe, is how that worked. And yeah, so Chad Boseman at this point, he's dazzled everyone with his biopic work. He got 42, which is Boseman's introduction to the world. Like, hey, Chadwick Boseman. And then you have Get On Up, which is like, he can act. And then you have,
Right.
like the world loving him with you have, Captain America Civil War, which puts him in, the Black Panther costume for the first time. And it was like, we love this guy. So, so it kind of gets what gets him to doing this. And this comes out right before Black Panther. So he's probably shooting that at the same time as, probably the same time as this is coming out. I'd wager a guess. So there's not a whole lot of background I can tell you, but what I can tell you is in terms of the accuracy of the film. So in terms of historical accuracy, the courtroom stuff, as you probably imagine, it's all on record and everything. It's on the money. It's right. All this happened. They kind of downplayed the whole. There's like a ransom note, like the night written to kind of falsify the stuff that that her claims and everything. So the ransom note was kind of downplayed, but it was there and it was kind of covered blanketly. The stuff outside the courtroom, however, that like them being attacked by kind of two groups of people not crazy about this court case didn't happen. Thurgood Marshall got into fights during cases at times, but not during this one. And the biggest inaccuracy, there's kind of a miracle exception inaccuracy of the movie is a big one. Sam Friedman, the Josh Gad character, very mischaracterized.
Oh no, really?
Not that he was a bad guy in real life or anything, just the fact that Sam Friedman apparently, he was much more competent than the movie gives him credit for.
That's funny. That's funny. That's
like,
basically just like writing the character into the Josh Gad mold. Then
essentially that is
really
exactly
funny.
And the family was not happy about it too.
I mean, granted, I do think that he has probably like the best arc of the whole movie.
I agree. I love what we do with this charker.
Yeah,
but according the family was a little upset by it.
That's crazy. That's
family,
really funny to
think about. They took our essentially. I think the relative was like his great uncle, his great nephew or something. Like they took my great uncle and they made him into a schmuck. They turned him into a schmuck. Look what they did to him.
He's the Book of Mormon guy.
Yes, they turned him into like the guy who floundered with the minute the lead character left the room.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
That was the big thing that really got under their skin too. By the way, it's the fact that he was like he needed him to really like be there the whole time to be effective. Yeah. Yeah, as a point, the struggling was kind of the thing that really bothered him about Josh Gad's character. Plus, he didn't really look like him too. I'm sure Josh Gad just anyway. So it was shot mostly in Buffalo, New York, from my understanding. Critics liked it. It got the Oscar nomination, not for screenplay or movie or anything, but for best song. One of those credit songs, I believe. And lost to Coco, as you not surprisingly, because how do you compete with Remember Me? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, God, could you imagine if anything would have lost to that?
Exactly. So yeah, there you go.
All right, so let's just start breaking it down. Where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, I guess the place starts. The biggest criticism, but also unique thing about this movie we should talk about right at the gate is it's a very unconventional misdirect of Thurgood Marshall. We start with him in court and he's doing his thing, he's being really good at it, and the rest of the movie he's being stifled and kind of silenced in court. So basically, Thurgood Marshall, the esteemed lawyer who then becomes a Supreme Court justice, he's not really allowed to take the spotlight, like, officially. He's not really. So people have had to have gripes with that. Like, you're giving me a big Thurgood Marshall biopic, and he's sidelined the whole time. That's how some people feel about it. Now, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about Thurgood Marshall? This is a biopic representing this guy, and how we showcase his character.
I mean, it's interesting, because I don't know, honestly, Dragon, the whole thing with like Josh Gad's character being fabricated, it honestly kind of like throws the whole, like, a lot of my big main selling points out of whack a little bit, because,
well, again, it doesn't take away from the movie that we do get, though, but just, yeah, it's,
no, but like, I do think that like the big selling point of the movie is like Josh Gad is essentially like the audience surrogate character, where like he's becoming a better man through his interactions with Thurgood Marshall, and hopefully by extension the audience is like taking away those same good lessons, right? Like, that's so I don't know. What I can speak on with Josh Gad's character is that I do have close friends who are Jewish, so I very much do appreciate the contrast between the Jewish struggle and the African American struggle, especially during the time period.
Yeah, this is again, folks. This is right before. Now, this is set specifically in April of 1941. This is before Pearl Harbor. This is before America was very pro, like, we're fighting Nazis. We're like, the war's going on. The Jews they're not doing so well, and people aren't really caring.
Right. So I do appreciate that. Gad at first, like, I don't know, but to answer your question, Dragon, I do think that it's a problem with the movie. Boseman does have some Mr. Tibbs energy for sure. Like, he does command the screen when he's there, but I think it's interesting because I feel like it's kind of like the opposite of the Jackie Robinson thing, where Jackie Robinson, he really does not command the screen, but his role is written so well that like you understand the subtle kind of like undertones of the performance.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's a very strong performance. I just don't necessarily think anything really about the character in particular is written all that compelling.
I mean, for me, I went into this movie because when you hear Thurgood Marshall, I'm thinking the judge, and the fact that he was not a judge and we're seeing him as a lawyer was already kind of throwing me for a loop. And then I don't mind that he is not like I like the unique circumstance that we put him in this movie. I like the fact that, kind of similar to Jackie Robinson, he is kind of stifled, only opposed to Jackie Robinson. This guy is very much pro-cause. He very much has like a cause he's very vocal about, and he's doing everything he can while sidelined and while kind of like silenced in court to get that message across. So that's interesting to me. The fact that this guy has a major handicap he's working within the movie, but he's still conveying a lot. So that I liked. And I think what really works for me about what we do with Thurgood Marshall here is he's kind of like Bill Bixby from The Incredible Hulk. He's kind of like that David Banner thing where he's just well, he's not in hiding. It's like he's going from one town to the next, to help fight injustice, and just it keeps going on. The mission keeps going on.
I could see that. Yeah, especially how we end out the character.
Yeah. And I think what I would have liked maybe a little more focus on this, but I like that what we do get across with his home life is a guy who is giving a little too much of himself to a cause to build a better world, where it's kind of like costing potentially a family life and everything and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, my read on the family life stuff is just, I mean, with 42, like, we had a shit ton of baseball scenes in that movie. But at the same time, like, we still managed to make a lot of time for the family stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I just kind of feel like I get what you're saying with the themes that they are sort of the family being underwritten.
Yeah.
Like, there's really not a lot to chew on. And again, I feel like the more interesting actual development happens with Gad.
True. I mean, let me ask you this. With one thing with Marshall, then we'll move on to Josh Gad just in full here. I just want to... Do you think so the judge doing what he does to Marshall in this film, just you're basically telling him he can't speak in the courtroom, do you think that's purely prejudicial, or do you think it's because they know he's right and they know ultimately he's going to be right and they don't want him to say it?
I mean, I took it as just purely like it's the system, it's racism, it's like that's how it works, boy, you know, that kind of thing. That's how I read it.
All right, so I'm saying it's more racism than it is corruption. You know,
Yeah, that's how I read it.
okay. All right, so yeah, so let's talk about so Josh gets so Sam Friedman. Again, what we just go off of what we have presented in the film. This character is rather compelling. He's likable, and I like that we're calling Marshall out a little bit with this guy, just saying you stroll in the town, you upend my life and everything. You don't care because Marshall did this guy kind of dirty. He
Uh,
he put him, put him in a position of like, no, you're very publicly associated with the NAACP, and you are involved in this case. I mean, for me, there is kind of like a trial of the Chicago Seven kind of start to the adventure here, in which it's the whole like Bobby Seale's attorney was not representing him, and he was in that weird legal crack where he had no lawyer, and Mark Rylance had kept having to say like, he doesn't have a lawyer.
right.
Where in this case, Sam Friedman, I felt for him here at the top. He is not a trial. Well, it's not that he's not a trial lawyer. He's a civil lawyer. He is not a criminal lawyer. And I think what he says to the judge there is like, Your Honor, I do civil law. That in itself is grounds for him to be excused. He shouldn't be doing that trial at all.
Yeah, I really like his character from a number of perspectives. That is certainly one of them. I just really appreciate the arc of him, being very kind of like concerned about his own image, even if he's in the right space. He's in the right with it. But I really love how we go from that to ultimately like that's the best compliment anyone's ever given me. Like that's a solid character arc to get from point A to point B.
And I like that we have this essentially we kind of set a precedent where he's not racist at all. Like, he's very cordial with, like the black friend from high school. I think the idea is high school where he has like the whole, half the reason he's in is because he played trumpet with this guy. Not well either. So I just love that. And and because of that, he's getting to a place where it's less his interactions with black community. It's more like he doesn't want the ramifications of like you have a client who is a black man who has supposedly raped a woman, and you are defending this monster seemingly to any other people in a synagogue, I guess. And people aren't really crazy in a temple and everything. They're not crazy about this. So, and I like that his wife. I like that moment with his wife where she hears like she's gossiping with the other lady at the church there, and she feels kind of like some pride, like my husband's doing the right thing. I shouldn't be mad at him at all. Like that, there's a little bit of Jackie Robinson in that, honestly, with a little bit of, like we kind of went the other way with it. We didn't have her holding a grudge against him the whole movie.
Sure.
That was nice because you thought like, oh, she's gonna take the kid and leave somewhere or something, but we didn't do that. Thank goodness. Yeah. Let's see. Also, I like that he's kind of like this. He's this Jewish lawyer in a practice with his brother, and his brother like signed him up for this thing. It's like his brother's like at fault here for everything. He's just ticked off at his brother. Yeah. Okay, so again, just in general, something we should set up, and then we'll just kind of take it wherever you want to take it. So the premise of the film, I think, is rather ingenious. The fact that James Cromwell, I love that James Cromwell's in this movie. It's a good James Cromwell performance.
It is.
Of course, the kind of the meta thing here is like, hey, James Cromwell from the Green Mile. We have 2 Green Mile actors who kind of pop up in this. So, giving James Cromwell a big role of authority, it's kind of cool. It's the fact that James Cromwell as Judge Foster here, he's the mountain to climb in the movie, where he won't let Thurgood Marshall defend Mr. Spell, and he's just blatantly. Again, it's basically he's just blatantly ignoring the fact that this is a civil attorney who should not be doing this case, and it's just this. It's the fact that these 2 guys have to work together to kind of help the Sterling K. Brown character. And it's the fact that they're just kind of like forced together, and then just the fact that every turn there, it's kind of like it's gonna be a weird comparison. It's a little like my cousin Vinny. It's
I can see that.
Little kind of some layers of that of like, okay, we're in kind of an untenable legal position, but we have to work together, dig ourselves out of it. And they were so upset when this ruling came down. Thurgood was like, "Shut up! All right, I'm thinking. Shut up." Yeah, so it's a really, I think it's a really good premise for a legal drama of kind of doing it through kind of a buddy movie of sorts, but not really on focus as a buddy movie.
Oh, I'm not gonna rip on Green Book. Green Book.
Just take it somewhere else in the movie. Just where else do you want to go?
I'm sorry. You want to talk to Sterling K. Brown? Because I think he is he's a bit understated with
Yes.
his role, but I think he's got a major, like he leaves a major impression though,
We need to give
especially in the third act.
Sterling K. Brown is such a good actor. We got to give him more stuff to do feature-wise because he's so great on. I understand people love him on TV. Every time I see him pop up in something, I think he does a really good job. Also, little connective tissue of Black Panther here. He was like a key. He was kind of a secret key player in the first Black Panther movie, and we have Chadwick Boseman. It's kind of cute. It's like,
Yeah.
Look at them have a scene together. They didn't have a scene in that movie. It's kind of nice.
So I think with Sterling K. Brown, like his whole character, it's very much kind of like, the working class black man versus the image of like the Sidney Poitier style, like black excellence, right?
Yeah,
that's how I read it.
No, for sure. I mean, there's something. This is like again. I'm not going to say he's slow, but I think he's kind of a simple kind of like kind of boots on the ground, kind of just kind of, as you said, he's very
well. I mean,
class.
you have to keep in mind, Dragon. Back in the day, it was very rare for for African Americans to be educated,
and that's the thing. So by comparison,
so it's like he's not like I feel like slow isn't even like it's just like it's fundamentally like how the system was. It's not even like a learning disability per se.
I guess the way of looking at it is he's very much representative of somebody who needs Thurgood Marshall again. I guess we're going to go with the whole like running theme of these podcasts with the whole like literally need being the theme, like from the 42 of it all, and the things that we need. And James Brown don't need anybody. That whole thing. So in this case, is we have somebody who represents why Thurgood Marshall does what he does. This is kind of the average Joe black man who was at the time who very much is going to be railroaded unless he steps in and he helps him. And he is undereducated, and he is just kind of like essentially he too is in an untenable position where again if he told the truth he would have been killed, as we get to later in a really dramatic, awesome moment. And yeah, but the truth of the matter is just so much more disturbing too when you think about it. This is not just like an Atticus Finch situation. This is something far more grim and kind of like really abhorrent. What this lady has done to him. Yeah. So, but yeah, Sterling K. Brown, just seriously, I think he plays this poor, scared black man so well, and I love how there's almost somewhat of a, it's gonna be a weird way to put it, it's also sort of like a paternal thing that Thurgood Marshall has with this guy when he confronts him later on in the movie about the whole, you're gonna be straight with me right now. It feels kind of like an angry father or something.
Sure, yeah.
So should we talk about kind of the opposition here? Or should we talk about like the logistics of building the legal case, like some of the cool stuff Thurgood Marshall does? Like, what do you want?
I don't really have a lot to say about that because it's pretty much just cut and dry courtroom stuff. So what do you have to say on that? Just to get it out of the way, I have more to say about the opposition.
So, I mean, I think it's really cool, like some of the clever tricks that Thurgood Marshall does here, where he looks at the pebbles thing. He's poking holes in the legal case by looking.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sorry. There are a couple. Honestly, Dragon, you know what my favorite moment in the whole film is?
It's the gag, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the gag.
Oh my god, it's so fucking clever.
It's very clever, and also, I mean, I think Retrospective, because again, obviously this takes place in 41, but just still is the fact that anyone watching this, there probably be any legal aficionados mainly. It's going to draw a little Bobby Seale comparison.
Yeah, totally.
A little bit, but yeah, seriously, the big kind of like the Perry Mason moment, one could say, is like, ma'am, you're saying you couldn't scream at all because you were gagged, and so the gag is
just like the fact that Gad, like, he really goes for it with the scream, man. Like, it's not an acting scream; it's an ear piercing scream.
Exactly. So, of course, yeah, he very audibly, again, you can scream. You can't really talk, but you can scream. And yeah, and I love the fact that there's so many things I love about this scene. Because one, visually it works because we've kind of, it's almost like in another context, it'd be a buddy movie shot. This would be on the poster of like, oh, this guy, oh, that guy.
Oh my god!
Just imagine like Chadwick Boseman just tying the gag on the back of his head, and it's just like, I can't shut this guy up.
Courtroom shenanigans.
I'm the silent one, but I want him to be silent so I can do the talking.
Oh my god! I can just picture it.
Anyway, so no, but seriously, so you have that image already, but then seriously, you do have the fact that he's been silenced the whole movie, so we have an opportunity for Thurgood Marshall to actually speak and get away with a little bit before the judge kind of pulls the reins back a little. And just the fact that we for the purposes of demonstration and then just for the dramatic purposes of like, yeah, he's Thurgood Marshall is going to be able to really kind of do the proof in the pudding thing right now because he literally can't speak right now because he has a gag.
I really think that is like one of the like definitive aces in their pocket with winning the case. I really do think that was like probably like the thing that kind of started to turn the tide, don't you?
I concur. I think the Pebbles was a beginning, and we even had Thurgood Marshall kind of laugh at it. Well, not laugh off. He told him not to laugh off. This isn't like scoring points in a game. A man's life's on the line here.
Sure.
But yeah, you're right. I think
the image of the buddy comedy poster is very funny.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
But yeah, but also again, all the little things that Thurgood. I think the other thing is really impressive in the movie that he does. And one of the most, it's a dialogue driven scene versus the visual that scene really has in its pocket. That is absolutely a proof of Perry Mason. I love in the jury. I like the jury selection process, and we have that great moment where Thurgood Marshall points out that lady that he wants to exclude. He's like, "Are you out of your mind? We got to exclude this lady. Mm-hmm. She's friends with the victim. We can't put this lady in here. Are you nuts?" And he basically explains like the body language as she does not like the opposition. She likes you.
Right.
Meaning she's going to be impartial. Meaning if we can convince her, we can convince anybody. So it's the fact that Thurgood Marshall was so smart, he could read that body language. This guy is like an attorney at the top of in his prime. Quote SpongeBob. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was great. And again, like the little pebble thing, like, oh yeah, so let me get this straight. She was pushed into the non-lethal side of the bridge, and he just chucked pebbles at her, like bloop, 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 blink. That's what he did. Right. Like, again, these are really great legal stratagem that is at play here. All right. So let's talk about the adversarial system, man. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So you want to talk Hudson or Stevens first?
Whatever you like.
I guess Hudson first, I guess.
Yeah, go on.
So, yeah, I do like how she plays. She has a very multifaceted role, right? Where it's like she has to play both, genuinely like trying to be the victim, but then also when the truth is coming to light, there has to be like some, like I'm thinking specifically of the last moment with her where she exchanges the glance with Sterling K. Brown, and it's like, as much as I was a monster with this whole thing, there is still some feelings there.
Yeah, because she is in this space where she is, at the end of the day, she is technically a victim, but not of our guy. She's not a victim of Spellman. She's a victim of her husband because she's in an abusive relationship and societal kind of like judgment, which she has kind of imposed more so upon herself. Is the fact that, remember, even before she was found out, she was just freaking out about the whole what ifs and everything. And I think, honestly, so in real life, this was also like the one court detail, if I recall, that they did kind of do for the liberties that feed into why she did what she did. Okay, so I'm going to try and phrase this delicately. She wasn't, in real life, she wasn't concerned about the pregnancy thing because it was implied that, things happened outside. So that was like the one difference. But again, I like the idea, even just the more the paranoia of like, oh God, what if I'm pregnant with a colored child and everything? So it kind of motivated her to try and kill herself. And just the fact that she, just because this poor guy tried to stop her from killing herself, she's like, I'm going to tell him you raped me. And then she, she does what she does. She's a real piece of work, this lady. He's going to spend his life in jail, if not possibly death.
Mm-hmm.
That's messed up.
Sure. I hear you.
The fact that out of guilt and disgust is mostly why she's trying to do this. I don't know. It's awful. But you're right. There is like a little bit of sympathy between these exchanges because again, Spellman really liked this lady. That affair happened because out of love, But yeah.
All right, and then Dan Stevens. Not much to say about him. He's the Beast from Beauty and the Beast,
and here he's the Beast of racism.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, that's the most interesting thing about him. Yeah. I mean, he does fine. I don't necessarily think he comes across as like particularly villainous, which I guess is a plus to him being impartial. I don't know. He didn't leave much of an impression.
Did you ever see Dan Stevens in the show Legion?
No, I forgot that was him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, I could never. I would have to try and get into that show again because I didn't care for it when I watched it the first time. But it's the kind of thing where I'm not crazy, but I think you'd love Legion though.
Uh,
And he's from what I understand, what I did see, he was good in it. But anyway, my point is, yeah, Dan Stevens, good actor, and what he plays here, he plays a very unlikable, just racist prick, and not just racist. He's very prejudiced, because again, he's against the African American people, and he's against the Jews. He's really. I love how I thought Jews were supposed to be smart. Like you're defending the black man. This is like that's the best comment you could ever pay me. It's a good moment. And just again, just to remind you that where we are in 41.
that's probably the best screenwriting moment in the movie, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, for me, is we don't pull back at all on just how racist this guy is because we have this great bit where Thurgood Marshall crashes like the gentleman's club and the lunch and everything. He just walks up there. He takes a bite of his bread. You see him do that real prissy thing where it's like, "Ooh, a black man is eating my bread. I'm going to push the plate away." Yeah, I mean the thing that really haunts me too is like the conversation during that lunch is about like let the Nazis and the Russians do what they're gonna do essentially. And again, this is like a few months before Pearl Harbor happens, when everyone in America is gonna change their tune.
Sure.
And it just shows you like, yes, this whole American guy, like, yeah, we're gonna judge the Jews, no sympathy at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the guy's a real. He too is a piece of work, only more in the more aggressive side of things. I love that. Like,
I guess, I like, obviously he's, a guy, but I know, I just think performance-wise, there's really not a whole lot to chew on. I don't know.
You're right. He's not reinventing the wheel, clearly. But I don't know. I think
maybe it's just Alan Tudyk kind of like stole the show with the memorable racist.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you look comparatively, and I do wonder. Tiki, I'm going to ask you a weird question. Aside from Thurgood Marshall in that one scene in the bathroom when he is when he's telling the story about if anyone calls you, my father told me if anyone calls you the N-word, you have my permission, but not just my permission, my order to fight people. We did have white people use the N-word in this, didn't we?
Yes, but I mean,
the train station,
like the said Alan Tudyk thing.
I don't know. I just want to mention for a moment. I kind of forgot that. Like, yeah, I guess I was wondering if we sanitize that a little bit here versus that. But
it is honestly probably a little sanitized given the time period. But yeah, I mean, the word is thrown around. It's
okay. Anyway, yeah, but you're right though. Obviously, by comparison to Alan Tudyk, this guy is kind of a saintly comparatively.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And again, I want to be clear. Again, when we say Alan Tudyk, we don't actually mean we and Ben Chapman, the character Alan.
No, Tudyk, of course we don't actually mean Alan. I'm just saying.
This is why we
Alan Tudyk is just a flaming racist, Dragon. You heard it here first.
Well, don't. They're gonna. Again, we gotta be very clear.
Please, nobody clip that out of context.
Again, Ben Chapman, folks. Ben Chapman, horrible racist. Alan Tudyk, lovely human being, I'm sure. I love him on Resident Alien. He's great.
Oh God.
Anyway, but yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, this is kind of what I was afraid of with this movie is that it's well done, but there's not really a ton to talk about. Like, where else do you want to go with this?
Well, we have at least 2 to 3 more things we should talk about here. So, do you want to talk about like the whole when they're getting attacked at like the bar and on the street and stuff?
I mean, yeah. Like once again, I feel like it's like I don't know, Dragon. My issue with that scene is that I guess it's a solid scene. I do like the cross cutting.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's kind of like the movie sort of like condensed all of the major like racism drama into that one moment almost, whereas I feel like in stuff like 42 it's a little bit. Does that make sense?
It's a little bit what?
Like it feels more like they turned like the racism into a set piece, whereas with the other 2 movies we're talking about, the racism is just kind of like more kind of naturally integrated into the whole of the movie.
It does feel like we designed a sequence to get some action into the movie. That's what it does. It does feel like, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. And again, we kind of need like a bonding moment for Sam, where he's like he too is kind of feeling the plight of the black man, essentially.
Sure,
So we kind of get a
sure.
little bit of that in there. And, okay, let's see.
Although, frankly, I think one of his relatives being sent to a trick.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Yeah.
I mean, that's honestly probably the most brutal thing that happens to anybody in the movie.
That's true. Yeah, like his wife telling him well after that fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. So let me talk about the MVP. For me, I think one of the oddly nothing against Boseman, of course, because Boseman's great in this movie. But again, because he's kind of in that position where he's not always in focus, because he's usually the guy behind the scenes getting us to these big courtroom moments. I think the MVP moment of the whole film for me is Sterling K. Brown breaking down on the stand, just confessing, answering, Dan Stevens, Willis's questions. The whole big question of
for sure. I mean,
that scene we have to talk about.
Like, the one thing with that scene is that I feel like once again it does feel a little bit manufactured. Like, we got to give him a monologue. God damn it!
But again, this is probably courtroom transcripts, though.
That's true. Yeah. No, it is very effective. It's definitely like I love how it's kind of like the payoff to Sterling K. Brown's entire performance in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really good moment.
I mean, for me, it's no. Sterling K. Brown, obviously, he gets us there, and he's very important in this. But for me, it kind of feels like he's just the confessing the fear that the truth would have got him killed or castrated, then lynched, which is very graphic, very horrible the way he describes it. For me, what haunts me from this movie, I think the best part of this whole movie for me, the fact that James Cromwell, who's been kind of the Fred Gwynn, if we're the My Cousin Vinny kind of comparison here. The fact that James...
Oh my God, I forgot that was Fred Gwynn in that movie.
Oh yeah, it's Fred Gwynn in that movie, yeah.
Oh, you know how much I love my Fred Gwynn.
We all love the Gwynn. We Gwynn the Gwynn.
I was so delighted when he randomly popped up in that one movie we covered. I forget what it was.
Oh, you mean The Christmas Star?
Yes.
My kids think I'm a rumor, Lou. Anyway, so that's the thing. So James Cromwell, he has this wonderful. I love the way he plays the reaction after hearing that. And Dan Stevens' character tries to strike the answer from the record, which is very bad thing to do, by the way. Like, hey, the impassioned plea of him answering.
I feel like the whole striking things from the record thing, like that is like throughout the movie. That's like the most, in a good way, kind of element of it. It's like, okay, fuck you, Judge. You're basically just saying that the word of the black man does not matter. Great, awesome. What the hell are we even doing this for then?
So I just love the way he plays the honesty and the acceptance in that moment of like basically this black man has just confessed to like the truths of the world that even the most intolerant racist has to admit. Yeah, that would have happened. Yeah, if he told us that he had sex with a white woman, bad things would have happened because they've happened elsewhere. Probably would have happened here.
Sure. Yeah,
probably would have done all that stuff. So he can't honestly. Obviously the judge is skewed in this movie, but he is in his own mind. He is trying to be fair, but still,
I feel like he's skewed just in the like he's not necessarily like
he's not corrupt.
Systematically a racist. He's more so just sticking with the system and how it's done.
Yeah, that's the thing. And the system is kind of racist at this time. So because of that, he's kind of so it's like not that he's personally racist, but not that he's like welcoming the black man with open arms, mind you. But still, like he's not trying to like make the case one side or full. He's not putting a thumb on the scale, but he could be doing more.
Sure.
So regardless, it's the fact that he hears this answer and he realizes. I love that he's genuinely moved, and I love the way Cromwell plays that. It's the fact that he's been this mountain to climb the whole movie, and he just kind of like he lets it stand. Like that was such a great moment. It's really very well acted from Cromwell. It's like Cromwell's getting up there, but he's still got it. So also this is really cool too. It's the closing of it all. How great was the closing with the cross cutting there?
Cross-cut. I mean, I think in general the cross-cutting like throughout the movie is probably the most theatrical thing it has going on, which isn't much, but hey, it's something stylish.
As the closing itself too, just the idea of like he has a glass of water and he has like the little symbolic.
It's a really good glass shot for sure. It's a really good glass shot.
Every little droplet is like doubt, reasonable doubt. It's like, yeah, it's good. It's also kind of fitting too. I like how Thurgood Marshall, again, it's kind of like them taking history and just kind of like giving kind of like a fun, like a unique angle to it. Where, yeah, if Thurgood Marshall's not there for the verdict, he's moved on to the next case. It's going to be, it's they have this phone call and this crappy phone line, so they can barely hear each other. Says, "We won."
I really like the realism of that. I really like that. That essentially kind of flies in the face of, usual how biopics are usually written, where we write characters into locations and stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Last thing, there's an Easter egg, a very unique Easter egg at the end of this movie. I think
I
want to bring up. I'm going to bring up trepidatiously, given we had an embarrassing moment way back during Black History Heroes once. So, yeah, so at the end of this movie, there's actually kind of a relevant. They did kind of like a subtle kind of relevancy then to now sort of thing when this movie came out. So, Thurgood Marshall is doing a case on police brutality. I believe like a young black man was arrested and killed. I think it was when he was being arrested, he was beaten and killed. I believe is what happened.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that's why he's meeting the family there. I forget what year this specifically took place. I don't know if it's the same year or the year before or whatnot. There's a little relevancy Easter egg because the parents, if I understand this right, at the very least, if IMDb is to be believed, I'll say that much. I heard that they as an Easter egg, they got Trayvon Martin's parents.
Oh my God.
For that scene.
Dude.
And again, so they got the parents of Trayvon Martin, and they basically paralleled. I want to say they somewhat paralleled what happened to him with the case that was brought him.
Okay, that is legitimately that is trippy to think about, man.
So wow. I forget if the Martin thing happened in 2016 or 17 or what.
I'm pretty sure it was 2016.
Well, I think if it was 16, then
I remember that year, that was the year that fucking Trump got elected, and that was the year that that the Weinstein stuff came out. Yeah, I am pretty sure it was 26. Oh man.
Well, the Weinstein stuff.
First of all, I give those people just so much fucking credit. I mean, that must have taken nerves of steel to get on camera like that.
I'm gonna say this. I think if it wasn't for the director, I think more so if Chadwick Boseman wasn't involved in that movie, I don't think they would have done it.
Makes sense.
I'm going to go as far as to say that because I think Chad Boseman built up a lot of credibility, and also the fact that he's Thurgood Marshall. I think that probably.
I mean, honestly, that really makes me appreciate the ending even more. Man, that's powerful.
Yep, and then of course we have the biopic text, and we end on Dr. King commending Thurgood Marshall and all his great works and everything, and the fact that he argued the Supreme Court only lost 3 times, and he won like 29 times.
Mm-hmm. Huh. All right. Okay. So, Legacy, final thoughts. How does it hold up? So on and so forth. I guess the one big thing I want to start with Legacy is that this is kind of like the final big Chadwick Boseman biopic role. And I think it's really interesting how we have this trilogy that we're going over. And, I mean, I think he ended on a quiet note, but at the same time, I feel like it's both the most arguably the most historically important figure that he's got, because you could make an argument for Jackie Robinson as a trailblazer, but I don't know. I mean, Thurgood Marshall, he literally changed laws around, so it's like both of them are pretty important. But I think the really cool thing about this is that towards the end of his life and towards the end of his career, he really did go the full Sidney Poitier with this movie. There is so much Sidney Poitier in his performance here.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of like my main takeaway with it.
Yeah, I guess for me, just the legacy of it all. Again, this is absolutely just a stunning trilogy for any actor. Honestly, if you're gonna be in a trilogy of biopics, which is so unique when you think about it, with all the actors that we talk about who do, especially the ones who do biopics. So rarely do we get a trilogy of them.
I mean, I'm sure there's others we could think of, if we really put our minds to it.
Probably Tom Hanks off the top of my head. I'm sure that's probably the go-to.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure he's got 3 under his belt. Yeah,
he probably has more, but bare minimum we know.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Dragon, how many of them have exactly 3?
Well, you're right about that. Now
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's true. We don't
like
that.
it's either a situation like Hank's where he's got a ton,
Yeah,
or it's a situation like like a I don't know, like a Jamie Foxx's Ray or something like that, where they're very well known for the one role. You know what I mean?
certainly. So it just goes to show that Boseman in this life, he only had 3 bites at the biopic apple, and with each role, he said something meaningful about it, and he really, and again, he made movies that can really, again, that could be in the history books essentially with how good they were. It's like, okay, well, what do you know about James Brown? Well, let's get to the core who James Brown is. And this really gets to the core of like why Jackie Robinson was important, and this just shows you what Thurgood Marshall had to put up with.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we should talk about it real quickly. Our title image, the last moment of the movie before he meets the Martins, essentially is him drinking out of the white water fountain.
How good would it have been if that was the final shot of the movie, though?
I mean, yeah, I personally,
meeting the Martins is fucking seriously, Drag, that is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. But yeah, I don't know. This is just a really good shot, though.
It is. I think it says a lot about him. It does surmise who Thurgood Marshall is. The guy who's going to look at like the world needs to change. He's going to drink from that fountain. He's moving forward on the change. We had always folks. There's a lot of really good stuff too in this movie that we didn't dedicate a lot of time to. Like for example, he's where he says we're going to object every time they're going to discriminate against a black juror. We're going to prospective jurors. The fact that he's like, I don't care if it's going to get thrown out or denied. On the record, I want it shown that we objected.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. There's your Poitier coming through right there for what he's doing.
Exactly.
And that's great. So Boseman brought a strength and he brought a power to this role in particular, and again, like he could stand on the laurels of any one of these performances. Admittedly, again, Jackie Robinson and James Brown are probably more eye-catching, but still, it's the fact that again,
this is probably the most historically important, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. He played 3 very massively important black figures that really, again, of 3 very different fields too. I mean, this is amazing, and also just in terms of like what Boseman did again in adapting, like T'Challa too. I know it doesn't fit for our purposes here, but I'm just saying he's got like 4 in terms of iconography, 4 iconic roles.
Well, I mean, T'Challa probably should be in the conversation somewhere since we are talking Boseman. Like, obviously, we're not going to devote a whole podcast to it. Sure. Because we've already done that.
Yeah, we did.
But, we should probably, address it just in the context of the biopics, though.
It's just the fact that it's how unique that is. And I honestly think this, I don't think any celebrity has truly had in terms of, people talk about like the EGOT or something, or like the like people have done like a little bit of this, like one of every in a certain letter of that category. In this case, like Boseman, he's played the fictional hero. He's played, essentially the Chris Reeve Superman role. He's played the sports icon. He's played the icon of law, and he's played the icon of music. He's kind of covered.
It's like the fucking acting EGOT.
That's what I'm saying. He's like, so it's just so unprecedented and just kind of amazing when we get to the end of this journey here and just kind of taking into account like what Boseman left in the short time that he did have. And even beyond that, he did stuff like Ma Rainey's Black Bombers, and we saw him take on the playwright, essentially like do a play before he went out too. The guy, the guy accomplished a lot in the time that he was here. He even did the generic action movie and did a really good job with it with 21 Bridges. He did that. he brought a lot to the table. He covered so much ground. He had something to say about each role. Even in that somewhat, look, I like 21 Bridges. I'm saying generally people would probably throw it to the wayside. If he were not in that and had we not lost him, people would probably say, oh yeah, the Bridge movie, yeah. But,
sure.
It's just something special to appreciate. It's ultimately why we did this. We want to just kind of appreciate, we Tiki and I are lovers of biopics. We have a love affair with biopics of all shapes and sizes and lengths. And just the fact that Boseman is just such a kind of like a lightning striking in three times just almost in a row is just something to kind of appreciate for this year on Black History Heroes.
Oh yeah. All right, well, that's all for now, folks. Until next time, when we look at the next film in Chadwick Boseman's catalog that showed us the world's not simply black or white, but brimming with color as well as character.
On next year's installment of Black History Heroes.